If you hold XRP or any other altcoin, we have an emergency video with virtually all the top projects down over the past 24 hours. What we're going to talk about in this video is some shocking data based on the NASDAQ and Bitcoin stock to flow rainbow indicator and what to expect the rest of this year that we all need to be ready for. So we're going to talk about Bitcoin's dominance in this video. We're also going to break down what's happening for everything outside of the top 10 and my expectations based on a rounded bottom pattern and what we need to see in order for altcoins like XRP to break back to the upside into price discovery, plus some massive news that is taking place for Ripple, for XRP holders, and the bull market peak indicators and what to watch for when the top of the market cycle is in. Because you guys tune into this channel to know what's going on based on data, not based on opinions here. So I'm going to reveal the data on the charts. And by the end of this video, you're going to find what I share with you to be undeniable. So if you're feeling bullish still, comment 777. If you're feeling blessed, comment 777. And as always, if you're going to become the first millionaire or billionaire in your family tree, if you're already a multi-millionaire, then confirm it by tapping the subscribe button. Let's run it. Have you built a crypto portfolio over $1 million but want to access your wealth without selling any of your coins? Well, imagine unlocking up to 85% of your portfolio's value to fund ventures like real estate, to buy other projects in the crypto space that are undervalued compared to the projects that you currently hold, or to diversify into different DeFi yield opportunities. That way you can live on the interest without selling any of your crypto. Well, we've partnered with a leading global office offering non-recourse crypto loans for investors with portfolios starting at $1 million. The same company that is trusted by the world's largest institutions and investors because, as you already know, the billionaires don't sell their crypto, they borrow against it. So if you're ready to unlock up to 85% of your portfolio's value without selling any of your coins and you have a portfolio with at least $1 million, then email us at team@bullrunners.com. You're going to see our email contact in the description below, and we'll get you connected with the company that has helped clients like ours north of $100 million borrow against their crypto without selling any of it. So reach out to start a conversation with our team right now at team@bullrunners.com, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, bull runners, welcome back to the channel. So with the markets pulling back and Ethereum now back at $4,200, we're seeing altcoins take a hit as well too. You know, XRP just shy of $2.90. So let's just dive right in. Let's talk about what's happening right now. And let's also compare the crypto market to the stock market like the NASDAQ 100 index. Because if we put up the Bitcoin stock to flow rainbow indicator on Bitcoin's chart, which shows us the days until the next halving, we can also put it on the NASDAQ chart and we can see how many days we are into this phase of this indicator. And so green is where we're at right now. And as you guys can see, based in the last few cycles, how many days we last in the green phase is roughly 189 days. And so right now, if we just look at where we're at with this little pullback, if I just turn the indicator off right here, we've pulled back since the 11th of August on the NASDAQ. And a lot of people are wondering if the top is in right now or if we have further to go to the upside. Well, let's just look at how many days we are in the Bitcoin stock to flow rainbow indicator. Really simple. So we're about 126 days. Now, let's go back to the last time that we were at this stage and see what happened during the green phase right here. About 189 days until we turned from green to light blue. And then we went into an absolutely massive bear market where the stock market, dropped. It wasn't as big as 2008, obviously, or 2000, but it was a 37% crash nonetheless. And it was 322 days. So for an entire year. And this also at the same time was when the crypto market crashed. So we've seen heavy correlation between, the stock market and the crypto market during the last bear market. And I believe we're going to see heavy correlation again during this next coming bear market. But the real question is, how much longer do we have? And so if we were to look right now at 126 days in, well, if we look at where we were this last time around for the Dow Jones 126 days in, we were roughly right here on October of 2021. And that was during the short-term pullback in the NASDAQ of about 9%. And then we proceeded to rally from that point, another 16% to the upside. And then we pretty much just chopped sideways until the bear market started. Now, this is very interesting because if we look at the federal funds right here in purple, you guys can see during that entire run up right here for the stock market, interest rates were virtually at nothing. It wasn't until rates started to rise by like March of 2022 that the market was already in a bear market while rates were going up. Whereas this time around, The Fed funds rate is up here at like 4.33%, being paused right now while the markets are rallying. And we've seen this aggressive bounce in the NASDAQ since April while the rates have been paused. Whereas we go back here to 2018, we can see that the Fed was raising rates during that entire bull run. And after 189 days in, we saw another little pump once we transitioned from green to light blue. And then we saw this sell off of about 11%. And then we continued even higher for another 182 days, going from light blue to dark blue for the NASDAQ here until October of 2018. Then we sold off 23%. Then if we go all the way back to 2013, we can see about 189 days in that we transitioned from green to light blue. The effective federal funds rate was virtually at nothing down here. And then we rallied much further beyond that once we transitioned from light green to light blue. And then we saw these flash crashes on the way up of about 10%. This one right here of about 19%. And then this one right here of about 17%. That took about 238 days to recover from dark blue to purple. So this time around, it's very interesting because we have the federal funds rate being paused right now. Rates are not low. We're about 126 days into the light green phase here. And if we look at the last cycle, when we transitioned from light green to light blue, we saw a massive bear market. And during that bear market, the Fed started raising rates higher. And if we just compare the NASDAQ to Bitcoin's price chart at this stage in the cycle when we were about 126 days in to Bitcoin's stock to flow rainbow indicator, as you can see right here, the NASDAQ pushed a little bit higher to the upside, whereas Bitcoin, barely pushed a little higher on the price chart and then dropped while the NASDAQ was topping out. And then on this complacency stage high for the B wave in this ABC recovery right here, that's when we saw the NASDAQ making a short-term recovery as well too for its B wave before inevitably reaching the bottom alongside Bitcoin. So the NASDAQ rallied for a little bit longer, whereas Bitcoin topped out shortly after that, about 14 to 21 days later. So based on this alone, we're actually a lot further in the cycle than a lot of people think, but we're still in an uptrend for Bitcoin, and we're above the 200 moving average as well too. We're just barely below the 50. But as you can see back here during 2017 in September, we saw similar price action on Bitcoin's price chart. Once Bitcoin broke out above $3,000 right here on August of 2017, we saw Bitcoin rally even higher and then see a short-term temporary sell-off below the 50 moving average, back down to the previous high right here of June of 2017. And also the high right here of July of 2017, the Bitcoin consolidated at above the 50 moving average before breaking higher. Then we bounced off of this level right here and saw recovery to the upside, inevitably reclaiming the 50 moving average and continuing higher for the rest of that bull run. So right now on the left-hand side of the screen, well, what did we see happen? We saw Bitcoin experience a sell-off after December of 2024, inevitably January of 2025, where Bitcoin came all the way back down below the 200 moving average and then rallied all the way back up to this level right here as resistance, consolidated at it, similar to what happened right here back in July of 2017, we saw happen for Bitcoin in June of 2025, and then we broke out even higher. And now we're coming back down below the 50 moving average. So a likely scenario, in my opinion, again, I could be wrong here, but is I would expect Bitcoin to potentially come down back within $106,000 to $109,000 range, similar to what happened right here for Bitcoin around September of 2017, and then continuing higher as we go into the blow off top before the bear market starts. And right now we see the relative strength index at about 39, trying to hold on to this level right here since June 21st. And so in order for me to be more confident that this sell-off is over, I would want to see Bitcoin within this range right here, retesting these previous highs from December 2024, January 21st of 2025, and even May of this year, while the relative strength index resets closer to 30 or even below 30 before bouncing. Similar to what happened back here in September of 2017, where then we made a recovery on out of there. And another major reason why I don't believe this bull run is over yet is because if we look at Bitcoin's dominance here, we can see that we're still technically in an uptrend. If we were to measure the support since May of 2023 and just connect these lows here, we're simply just forming a higher low, even with this breakdown here. But we can see on the weekly chart for Bitcoin's dominance, the relative strength index has been making lower highs, whereas Bitcoin's dominance was making higher highs. So depending on what we see over the next few weeks for Bitcoin's dominance, if we see a short-term bounce in Bitcoin's dominance and Bitcoin makes a recovery from the $112,000 range, we need to see how high this recovery would be. If it doesn't put it back into price discovery, then just expect volatility for Bitcoin before we inevitably break out. So I wouldn't expect this bounce for Bitcoin's dominance to be that big. In fact, I would expect it to actually break to the downside, because as we're going into Q4 of this year, the end of Bitcoin's 4-year market cycle theory, and Bitcoin's dominance is still at 59%. We have yet to see this major breakdown like we've seen every single alt season prior to this cycle. And if we look at others right here, we can see this rounded bottom formation where we're still below the all-time high. Even if we zoom back here, the all-time high for others is all the way at nearly $500 billion. We're only sitting at $288 billion. But like I talked about in previous videos, with rounded bottom formations, we tend to see this play out time and time again. So here's a list of things that we look for in a rounded bottom formation. We see the low points. So the lower lows are formed in the downtrend, indicating heavy selling on the chart that we're looking at. We can do this on stocks. In this case, we're doing it on crypto. So we can see lower lows in the downtrend right here ever since December of 2024 for this ABC markdown phase. We can see it making contact right here for the initial sell-off for A on the 20th of December. And then between B and C, we can see right here on the 3rd of February. We can see it almost make contact on the 11th of March. And then for the bottom right here on C, we can see the 7th of April. And the next thing that happens is as sellers start losing momentum, the price starts consolidating, making a rounded bottom. This shows that a support area has been formed, which can eventually give a reversal. And so we see this happen. After the C wave, we rally back up to the neckline, and we see another sell-off back to the other side of this rounded bottom where we start to make a recovery right here. You can see this on the 22nd of June, all the way until the 9th of July before we break all the way above the neckline. And then we come back down to this rounded bottom right here on the 2nd of August. We attempt to break above it again, and now we are right within this zone that was resistance back here in the middle of May. So what we need to look for is a breakout confirmation, because the downtrend starts from a certain resistance point when the uptrend that comes after making rounded bottoms breaks the resistance from where the downtrend started. So traders take it as a confirmation of pattern completion. And here the long positions can be taken by considering the alignment of all other technical factors, of course. And so the breakout should be supported by the surge in buying volume, making it a strong long trade. We don't necessarily want to buy in this downtrend right here. We want to wait for confirmation on a breakout with volume to match, because otherwise we could technically come below it a little bit. And I'll give you guys an example here from what happened back here in 2020, because we did come below this rounded bottom for a period of time during COVID, and then we inevitably reclaimed it and then consolidated at it before breaking higher. But you can see the similar chart pattern right here. We had the top come in January of 2018. We see this initial sell-off for A, which are the first initial points of contact on this rounded bottom. We see a recovery wave for B, which is a complacency dead cat bounce for a lower high, similar to what we see right here for this lower bounce for this dead cat. And then we further sell off to the downside. We break below the A wave. We sell off to the downside. We break below the A wave. And then we just experience lower highs and lower lows for the C wave down here. By December of 2018, that's the bottom. And then we attempt to make a recovery back here into the neckline, which is roughly right around where the A wave is during that first initial sell-off. That's what we saw right here after the C wave. By April of 2025, we rally back up to where this A wave is right here and get rejected from where the neckline is right here. So this is by June of 2019. Once we hit that neckline, we sell off again back to the other side of this rounded bottom as we attempt to make a recovery. So you can see it time and time again playing out on each of these price charts right here. So inevitably, I would expect there to be a major move for others to happen. But in order for this to take place, I would want to see Bitcoin's dominance break below this ascending support right here. Once we get confirmation of this happening, and inevitably Bitcoin's dominance gets closer to about 55 or even like 53%. If we hit 54, 53%, then get ready, because we're going to start seeing blow off tops like what we saw happen during each market cycle for altcoins when they just rip to the upside. Now, I don't think it's going to be as parabolic as what this was right here by May of 2021. As you can see how drastic this deviation was right here from the rounded bottom when we exploded to the upside, because there's more dilution, and also the market cap was only like $30 billion. It went up to $400 billion. That's only like $350-ish billion coming into the market. That's not that much money compared to what we've seen recently, going from $250 billion by the 3rd of August to $330 billion. That's $100 billion on this little move right here. So it took significantly less money to do a parabolic move like this during 2020 to 2021. But nonetheless, the chart pattern is the exact same here. So ultimately, the biggest confirmation that I would want to see is us honestly clearing $330 billion coming back up here, because once we clear this high right here, inevitably, I think we would start to go parabolic back to the previous high of December of 2024 to catch up to Total 2's chart. Because if we look at Total 2's chart, as you can see here, we already made this move and now we're back at the previous high, whereas others were significantly below this previous high, all the way up here at about $450 billion. We're about $170 billion off. So I think this move is coming for others, but it'll only happen when Bitcoin's dominance finally breaks this ascending support. And I think that'll be the checkered flag, the final lap, like get ready, because then the crash will be coming after that. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but we've seen that happen virtually every single other cycle. Now, if we look at XRP to the US dollars price chart, we can actually see XRP doing a similar formation right here with this rounded bottom. We can see this A, B, C sell off to the bottom. we see this rally up from the C wave into the neckline of roughly $2.65. And then we see another sell-off back down to this rounded bottom on the recovery side of it. And then we break above the neckline, go into price discovery actually. And now we're just coming back down to retest the neckline. So if Bitcoin sees a sell-off in the short term to liquidate a lot of long traders before making a recovery, similar to what happened back here during that 2017 cycle, then you just have to be prepared for XRP to see a sell-off and a liquidation of longs as well too, before inevitably breaking out and deviating from this rounded bottom right here. And that'd be roughly at $2.60 to $2.65. Now, this would cause a lot of panic in the market, but I'm going to replay this video roughly 2 weeks to a month from right now, and I'll explain why this is nothing to be worried about if this does play out. Now, if this doesn't play out, what I would want to see to get bullish on XRP is a clearing of this descending resistance right here for confirmation that we're going higher. Otherwise, we'd still just be in a downtrend forming lower highs. So the odds are in favor of a bearish move right now. Now, I would want to see a bounce at $2.60 to $2.65. Again, it doesn't have to be exact because as you can see right here, back from like May of 2020 until really December of 2020, we just kind of rode along this rounded bottom and we didn't exactly come down to it each time, but it was relative. You guys get the bigger picture here. The point is to paint a bigger picture of what's about to happen next. So the biggest confirmation that we need to see is a clearing of the neckline and higher lows and higher highs being formed before inevitable explosion to the upside. So right now for XRP, we did clear this neckline right here, but we inevitably need to break this descending resistance and hold it as support before we see the explosion to the upside by the end of this year. I think this is going to come between like November to December in like 3 months from right now for XRP. So if we go into the hourly chart right here, this is what we see. XRP is just making lower highs and inevitably lower lows. So until this changes, the trend is your friend. We're seeing strong selling pressure right here to the downside for XRP. So I think we can come back down to $2.70 in the short term. And then what we want to look for is bullish divergences to the downside where the relative strength index potentially makes a higher low while XRP's price chart makes a lower low. And then we want to look for confirmation of a trend change when we start to break a descending resistance. And so what that would look like on the price chart is something like this, where XRP sells off to the downside and then attempts to reclaim a key level like this before we move higher. And if we don't see something like this take place and XRP just stays in this downtrend for a period of time doing something like this, we need to wait for confirmation of a trend reversal and a major clearing of a resistance before we consider going long on XRP, because currently right now, this to me looks like a falling wedge. But inevitably, when this falling wedge breaks and we start to move back to the upside, the target is the top of the wedge. It's like $3.35. So if you want to get a better entry point on XRP, the key here is to have some patience. Right now, we are bearish. The relative strength index is making lower highs as well too, alongside the price chart. And so this is why it's important to pay attention to the charts and not just the fundamental news, because you see Gemini posting this saying, prepare your bags. Well, on August 25th, it looks like we're going to see XRP MasterCards. And also on this document right here from JP Morgan, which is pretty much Chase Bank, they're saying that Ripple has the potential to disrupt the global cross-border payment industry. Ripple at present has been noted that the speed, cost, and liquidity characteristics has made it the most appealing digital asset for financial institutions for application at scale, where they compared XRP to Ethereum to Bitcoin Cash. And JP Morgan is actively releasing projections on the anticipated capital inflows that an XRP ETP could attract once it secures trading approval. They call it sizing up the XRP ETP opportunity. And so while XRP sells off, we see these bullish developments. Even Ripple congratulating Bullish, the exchange, on their successful IPO. A portion of the IPO proceeds were settled in RLUSD, their stablecoin, minted on the XRP ledger. This is the first public listing to bring the settlement process on-chain and sets a precedent for how stablecoins can shape future listings. Now, also in my previous video, I talked about how Gemini filed to go public on the NASDAQ under the ticker GEMI, and they also entered into a credit agreement with Ripple to help raise funds for their IPO. So now Ripple is becoming the bank basically and the lender for these companies that want to IPO, securing a $150 million credit deal. So if Ripple is funding this exchange and this exchange has 586,000 followers and they're going to continuously onboard new crypto users, which project do you think they're going to be bullish on? Well, of course, the company that helped them out by securing their funding and pushing people to buy the currency that that company is using. That's XRP. So when we see XRP finally break this downtrend right here, I think it's going to be explosive. I don't see why XRP wouldn't do well as the rest of the market breaks out, as Bitcoin's dominance inevitably breaks to the downside. Because think about this, guys. Look at what happened right here on the 29th of March going into April. Pretty much all through April of 2021, that was when XRP made its explosive move from 56 cents all the way upwards of $2 In a matter of 10 days, XRP rallied 255%. So you don't have much time to prepare. The only thing that you can do to prepare is basically accumulate before this major breakout happens. Because when that breakdown in Bitcoin's dominance occurred, XRP absorbed a large chunk of Bitcoin's market cap. And it was the exact same thing during 2017 as well too. This breakdown in Bitcoin's dominance was caused by capital rotating into XRP during that run up upwards of $3. And so this breakdown again, I think is going to be the exact same thing. I believe we will see a parabolic move like this happen for XRP again. And there's nothing you can do other than have your bags packed, because once this sell-off is complete and we see buzz around the ISO 222 integration happening by November, I think around that phase is when we see the blow off top for XRP. Now, we don't know how high that's going to be. It's pointless for me to give you a price prediction. I think at least like $4 to $5 minimum. If we go anything beyond $5, awesome, but I'm not counting on it. I think the real appreciation for XRP is really going to be by 2030's bull run. I think that's when XRP finally does really melt faces. But I think this bull run, I think it still has at least another major run in it, similar to what happened back here in November, and also similar to this recent run right here for July. I think there's another run coming for XRP. Because out of the 30 bull market top indicators, not a single one of them has hit. The Pi cycle top indicator hasn't come in. The Puel multiple is not at previous levels that it was at market cycle peaks. Bitcoin's rainbow chart is not in the sell, seriously sell. And all these others aren't hitting right now as well too. So combining that with Bitcoin's dominance still sitting upwards of 59% right now, and XRP's price chart just hovering right here below the all-time high, even below the high now of 2018. I think what's happening here is we're building pressure up before we inevitably explode to the upside for the final move for this bull run. And you have to be ready for it. Now, when this move happens for XRP, I believe during this peak right here, before we see the next major sell-off, we are going to see certain altcoins absolutely fly and do 5x, 10x, 15x, 20x, and actually drastically outperform XRP. Because when XRP starts to sell off, there's going to be a great rotation into other altcoins. And our research team is going to spot those altcoins and share them with you inside of Altcoin Pro University. For example, our research team posted GOAT on the 13th of October of 2024 when it was right at a penny, and since then it rallied to over $1, 5,000%. That's like turning $1,000 into over $50,000. Our team called Pendle at only a $16 million market cap, or 16 cents, back on February 18th of 2023, all the way back here, and since then it's rallied up over 4,000%. That's a 40x. It's like turning $1,000 into over $40,000. Our team also called BitTensor Tau September 15th, 2022, before the token was ever even launched. And since then, Tau has rallied over 2,000%. That's a 20x. Our team even said Solana is most likely to be one of the easiest trades next year, and this was posted December 29th, 2022, on the day that Solana bottomed out at around $8. And since then, Solana looks like it's up over 2,500%. That's a 25x. It's like turning $1,000 into over $25,000. The list goes on and on and on. Our team called Sui, Ondo, and even some of the biggest cult-based meme coins like MOG back in July 20th of 2023, the day that MOG launched. So if you want to learn how our team is finding these altcoins before they explode, we just launched Altcoin Pro University, where our research team gives you real-time altcoin picks with explosive potential for this bull run, along with 100+ expert curated classes crafted by industry experts to discover these gems yourself, on top of our live weekly calls every single week for in-depth crypto market analysis and daily updates. And that's just a fraction of what we offer inside of Altcoin Pro University through the link below. And although we make no guarantees because crypto is definitely risky, guys, this is only $97 a month or $970 a year. If you want to save $194, getting 2 months for free and unlock some exclusive bonuses, just go through the link in the description below. Get in right now. Watch the 26-minute video covering everything that Altcoin Pro University offers to help you become the first millionaire in your family tree, if that's a goal of yours. And you can get started through the link in the description below right now, or you can go to bullrunners.com to take advantage of the bonuses we're giving you before they expire. Everyone is loving the community. They're loving the education. They're getting access to real-time altcoin picks first before we ever make videos about them. So click the link in the description below, watch the video, and I'll see you on the inside.